Ashton Genty is gone to the NFL, but a majority of last year's playoff team does return, including Maddox Magnuson at the quarterback position, as well as most of the defense. So Boise State is set up very, very well in 2025, aside from the fact that they have to face or replace the best player we've seen in college football in quite a long time. The schedule starts off pretty easy with a road trip to USF. I don't think that the Bulls are going to be very good this season. Uh, just not really bringing back enough from last year's team that already wasn't very good. Boise State should roll pretty easily in this one. Same thing goes for that matchup with FCS Eastern Washington. This one, very easy win. Only thing of note here is that Eastern Washington has a red field, which is arguably way less cool than Boise State's blue field.
And after an early bye week, they start conference play with a road trip against Air Force. And really, this should not be that difficult of a game. Of the three service academies, Air Force is the weakest, especially comparing it to last year, where we saw Army and Navy as fringe top 25 teams with quarterbacks that ran for 1,000 yards and were a fairly decent team overall. Air Force was not the same. They have a lot of the production returning, but it's not going to be enough. Even with a home field advantage, it's not going to be anything that will deter the Broncos. They moved to 3-0 here. Appalachian State the following week will also not be too difficult of a game. App State is coming off of a pretty disappointing season and not returning very much production. Really shouldn't be too difficult of a game for the Broncos once again. Then they have their first and really only test of the season, and it is a road trip to South Bend to face the runner-up in the college football playoffs last year, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
And that should be honestly a good game. I think that Notre Dame seems like they should absolutely blow Boise State out of the water, and there is a slight chance that they will. Obviously, the big storyline is that Boise State doesn't have Ashton Genty anymore. The better running back in this game is actually going to be Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame, an early contender for the Heisman Trophy, possibly. He's up there with Jeremiah Smith as non-quarterbacks who are favorites to win the award. I think that with the home field advantage, Notre Dame should win this game, but Boise State can definitely make it competitive. We've already talked about the fact that they're bringing back a lot of players from last year's playoff team, which was able to compete with Penn State pretty well. I think Boise State's going to make it close, but it seems inevitable that they will drop this game on the road.
Looking to rebound from that loss, though, they take on New Mexico at home, and this could have been an interesting game last season, but New Mexico was losing a lot of their starting roster from last year to the transfer portal, particularly their starting quarterback in Devin Dampier, who is now the starting quarterback at Utah. And a lot of the offensive line also left to follow Dampier to Utah. So this New Mexico team is going to be a lot different. And I think that the Broncos will be the superior team. The offensive line is going to be as good as ever and is going to help their new running back follow in the footsteps of Ashton Genty. And he certainly has the name for it in Sire Gains. He's going to be gaining all those yards, maybe not as many as Ashton Genty, but will certainly be a focal point of this offense, along with Madsen returning at quarterback. Broncos move to 5-1 here, and then an interesting matchup against UNLV, the 1 and 2 teams in the Mountain West next year. UNLV was close a couple times, especially in that conference championship game. But Boise State was just overall the better team because they had the best player in the country in Ashton Genty. This year, it's a tale of two teams. Like we already mentioned, Boise State is returning basically their entire team with a couple of key departures, but the starting roster is mostly returning players or players that were at the program last season. UNLV is the complete opposite. Most of the team has been built in the transfer portal. They brought in Alex Orji to be their starting quarterback from Michigan, along with basically the entire wide receiver room and the starting running back. The defense is also predominantly transfers. It's just going to depend on is the talent that UNLV is bringing in enough to compete with the homegrown talent that Boise State has. And I really think this could go either way, but it is at home, and Boise State has one of the better home field advantages, especially in the group of five. I think they will be able to get the job done against UNLV and move to 6-1, but we could easily see this game at the end of the season as well in the conference championship, but we will get to that much later on in the offseason.
Next up's a road trip to Nevada, and the Wolfpack were not very good last season. No reason really to expect them to be good at all this year either. Even though Boise State's going on the road, there's a solid 90% chance that they'll pick up a win. And I mean, honestly, that's just because it's a conference game. We can't really go much higher than 90. But if I'm a Broncos fan, I would not be worried about this one. Then it's Fresno State. People generally say to watch out for Fresno State, and I think that that's a pretty good tip. I would imagine Boise State is going to be prepared for this one. It's also coming right before a bye week, which should help them to not look ahead to anybody else. Fresno State going to be somewhat decent. I'd expect them to have a good shot at making a bowl game, but I think that Boise State is just significantly more talented. I think their defense is really the most underrated part of this team. They'll move to 8-1 heading into the bye week.
Like Jonah was saying, Fresno State can be a little bit of a trap game, or one of the only games on this schedule that could be an upset for the Broncos just because Fresno State's defense is one of the better defenses in the group of five, particularly in the Mountain West. And they also brought in quarterback EJ Warner to take over, and he actually has starting experience. He was the starting quarterback at Rice last year and threw for 2,710 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. So definitely not a game to just blow off and say, oh, this is going to be an easy win. But like Jonah was saying, overall, Boise State is the more complete team and just the better team. After that bye week, it is a road trip to San Diego State. San Diego State was not very good last year, and they did not make very many improvements in the offseason. So once again, should be a easy win. It is a road game, so that's why it is only an 85% chance, and they're a little bit better than Nevada, so that's why the percentage is just a little bit lower, but still should be a win. And then hosting Colorado State. Colorado State's been up and down. At times, they've looked like a pretty competitive teams, but last year they were not nearly as good as some people thought they could be. They do have some things going for them, particularly the return of starting quarterback Braden Fowler, Nicolosi. But the wide receiver room has lost a good amount of its starters from last year. A couple people still returning, but not nearly as much talent as we've seen in past years. Defensively, it's going to be a little interesting. The secondary has a couple key guys returning, but overall, it's really going to come down to that defensive line that has lost a lot of key players. And once again, Boise State is just the more complete team. Like Jonah was saying earlier, the defense is actually pretty underrated, and I think against Colorado State will be the superior defense. Move to 10-1 and have a chance to go 11-1 the following week.
And that will be on the road against Utah State. And honestly, I'm just going to get right to the point. Boise State is going to hit that 11-1 mark. I really don't think that anybody in the Mountain West is going to be able to compete with them aside from really UNLV. I think the Rebels are the second best team in this conference. And I've been hitting on it all video. Connor just mentioned it. The defense for Boise State is going to be really good. And I think they're going to have a chance to beat some Power Five teams if they make it to the college football playoffs again. Well, I'll get to that part later, though. Our way too early projection was 8.4 wins. We had Boise State going 10-2 originally. Now the projection's up to 9.15 wins, 6.3 and 1.7 in Mountain West play, and that prediction is up to 11-1. The floor for Boise State going to be 9-3. I mean, you could see them dropping a game to UNLV potentially. Other than that, it's tough to find a third loss, but worst case scenario, I think that they could lose 3 games. And then the ceiling is going to be our prediction of 11-1. I said they can make it close against Notre Dame, but I really just don't see them winning that one on the road. Notre Dame made the national championship last year. They're still going to be really solid this year. And I don't think that Boise State's going to be able to win that game, which is why the ceiling's 11-1. But that's also our prediction. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.